And I am live. Finally, I'm live. I am going to share this. Just give me a moment. We're going to talk about the topic. And I posted it. I'm going to share this to Twitter. But anyway, I'm live, and as you can tell by the title, this is about Louisiana's fishing industry. In this, one of the things in the economy that's very important in Louisiana is fishing. Fishing is a very important part of Louisiana's economy, and it goes back to geography. In fact, I'm gonna pull another computer up in a second. I'm gonna share this stream on Twitter. Give me a moment. And I just tweeted it. Oh, look, somebody's on. Awesome. Well, I'm going to talk about the fishing industry in Louisiana, and the fishing industry is facing some problems in Louisiana, mainly as a result of the Bonne Carre Spillway being open twice this year. And this is actually the first time that the Bonne Carre Spillway, about 12 miles upriver from New Orleans in St. Charles Parish, has opened twice in a year. Now, I'm going to explain for a moment. I'm going to give a little background. the fishing industry in Louisiana is very important. It's an important part of the economy. In fact, you really think about the geography of Louisiana. You got the rivers, you got a lot of lakes, you have the state being located around the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, I'm gonna I got a spare computer since the tool that I needed to show you a map isn't working properly. I had to break out a spare computer, and this spare computer happens to have Google Earth on it. So what I'm going to do is bring Google Earth up. Here it is. Oh, crap. There's Louisiana. Louisiana right there, shaped like a boot. As you can see, you got the state of Louisiana. It's got sort of that boot shape. And as you can see where it's located at the Gulf, around the Gulf of Mexico. It's got a lot of water around it. You got the Mississippi River, which empties out into the Gulf of Mexico. It goes through New Orleans. It goes through southeast Louisiana, empties into the Gulf of Mexico, and that should give you a little geographic background on Louisiana. And that would explain why the fishing industry developed, because of the geography, because of the availability of resources such as shrimp. Remember, a lot of them come from Louisiana. There's a problem here. Stream. But yes, in the state of Louisiana, there's definitely a lot of oysters. And one of the things about oysters, a lot of people love them, and that's where they come from. There's more oil in New Orleans. What happens is, which it empties. I'm portray sort of bear. I think I cannot find the atlas, so this computer will have to do. But I will find a better map of Lake Pontchartrain right now. Just give me a moment. I will give you a better map of Lake Pontchartrain. There we are. I may have to adjust this for a moment. You see, there's a little bit of Lake Pontchartrain that sort of leads out to the Gulf. That little right there. That's what I wanted to show. There's a little bit that leads out to there. Leads out to Lake Borgne. Goes out to the Gulf. And one of the things about the water being diverted, like Lake Pontchartrain is one of the places being diverted, but one of the things is that diversion of water going downriver. A lot of that water is going into the Gulf of Mexico, and that infusion of fresh water going into the Gulf of Mexico, it's dropping the salinity levels of the water around Louisiana, and it's causing a lot of problems. And it's hurting the fishing industry. For people who fish for crabs, fishing for crabs, the crabs just get flushed out into other waters. But with oysters, they're at the bottom. They hang around the bottom of the water. And they can't just go anywhere, so it hurts them a lot. And it's one of the things that the opening of the spillway is doing. Has the fishing industry recovered from the BP? Well, I did not expect to talk about that tonight, but I would say I don't know how much, but I would say that the fishing industry is probably doing better now than it did right after the BP oil spill. but I would say that there is still some work that has to be done. But at the same time, there are also other problems that are affecting the fishing industry in Louisiana as well, particularly now. Right now, one of the biggest problems is the infusion of too much fresh water into the Gulf of Mexico or into some of the areas where you would find more brackish waters. And one of the things that is going on is that a lot of that water, a lot of that fresh water that's coming from the river as a result of the river having rose too much. And with the rising of that river, they have to release the water somewhere. So when they open the spillway, the water is going to go places, is going to go, some, a lot of the water gets diverted to Lake Pontchartrain. A lot of the water goes downriver. You know, it's supposed to be a flood control measure and is there for that purpose. One one of the problems right now is that there's just too much freshwater in brackish environments where oysters normally do well, and it's hurting them, and therefore it's hurting the oyster fishing industry. And one and here's the thing. This is why it is so important to learn about geography because what happens in one place can affect people in other places because it's not only in Louisiana that people eat oysters. You know, economics, supply and demand. Demand remains the same, but the supply goes down. Guess what goes up? The price. The price of oysters goes up. And this is going to affect a lot of people. It's going to affect the fishermen because their way of living is going to be compromised. Their way of living is going to be compromised by problems, not being able to get as many oysters out of the water, not being able to make as much money. And then people who eat oysters are not they're not going to have as many oysters, they're not going to be able to get the oysters, or if they get the oysters, the price might be higher. And with that, there's sort of a chain effect. What happens upriver will eventually reach you downriver. And what happens in one place can affect people in other places. Nearer things are more related than further things, but even further things can still reach you. You think about what happened, you got to think about the lay of the land in Louisiana. It is a place made for the fishing industry. It's an important place where a lot of people fish, a lot of people depend, many people depend on the land to make their living. Not everybody. Agriculture and fishing are not as big as economic activities as they used to be. However, people still depend on them. And as for BP, as for the oil spill, I would say there are issues with pollution before BP, before the oil spill, and there are still issues with pollution now. I would say that the fishing industry years later was in better shape after the oil spill. But at the same time, there are still some problems. But one thing about one thing to understand about the whole lesson in this, what happens in one place, it doesn't just affect you there. It affects you in other places. You know, consider that, you live in a place and there's a certain food you can't get in your place. You got to get it from somewhere else. If something happens there, like a drought or a flood or something that destroys that crop, demand is demand may remain the same, but the supply is going to drop and the price is going to go up, or the product just won't be there. You know, it'll affect you, but it'll also affect the person growing it. And so that's how you have to understand geography. It's not just here in one place. You have to think about it locally, and then you have to think about it further out. That is how you have to look at geography. And that is how you have to look at this particular issue with the Louisiana fishing industry going through hard times, mainly as a result of the spillway issue. And that's what you need to take away from this stream. I came to discuss how the Bonne Carre Spillway had to be released twice this year due to issues with flooding. And because of that, a lot of fresh water has gotten into areas that would normally be brackish. And it's causing a lot of problems with the oyster industry. And that is what I have to say about this. I hope you have learned something from this stream. And check out other videos on this channel. Till next time, this is the Geo Scholar. Learn as much about geography as you can.